There are moments in every life when the winds howl, when the sky turns dark, and when the world seems determined to test the limits of our endurance. It is in these moments, not in times of ease, that we come face to face with the truth of who we are. And it is here in the middle of the storm that the greatest strength a human being can possess reveals itself, not in anger, not in retaliation, not even in resistance, but in stillness. True strength lies in inner stillness, the kind of stillness that does not retreat, but stands firmly with dignity, the kind of calm that holds steady not because it does not feel the force of the storm, but because it has learned to meet it with discipline and resolve. This is not the stillness of indifference, but the stillness of clarity. It is forged through pain, sharpened by trial, and guided by the knowledge that chaos is temporary, but the decisions we make within it can define the rest of our lives. We often hear people say, "Stay strong," and they often confuse strength with loudness, with bold gestures, with force. But those who have truly walked through fire understand this. The loudest person in the room is not always the strongest. The strongest person is often the one who does not flinch in the face of insult, who does not respond to violence with vengeance, who can breathe deeply and answer cruelty with patience, not because they are weak, but because they are in control of themselves. There is a certain power in silence, in the pause between emotion and response. In that pause lies wisdom. The calm mind does not react. It chooses, and choice is the greatest expression of our freedom. A person who has trained their mind to be calm is not a prisoner of their emotions. They are not thrown about by anger or swept away by fear. Instead, they see, they understand, and they act not from impulse, but from purpose. This calmness, this quiet strength, is not given to us at birth. It is learned, it is trained. Like a muscle, it grows through practice, through failure, through reflection. It is built in the way we speak to others, and more importantly, in the way we speak to ourselves. A calm mind does not silence pain. It listens to it without being controlled by it. A calm mind does not deny injustice. It stands against it with clarity and discipline, knowing that justice, born of rage, can become a new injustice. I have seen men with great physical power fall apart under pressure because they lacked the discipline of mind. I have seen those with no weapon at all, but with a calm spirit, bring about change that echoed across generations. The calm mind does not bow to intimidation. It does not panic when the ground shifts. Instead, it steadies itself, finds its footing, and steps forward measured, thoughtful, deliberate. In the quiet of the mind, we find a place where fear cannot lead us astray, where hatred cannot take root, where love, courage, and reason are not drowned out by the noise of conflict. This inner sanctuary is not a luxury. It is a necessity, for without it we are left at the mercy of the storm, reacting without direction, surviving without growing. And when we cultivate this calm, we do not only protect ourselves, we guide others. In a room filled with panic, the calm voice leads. In a nation gripped by fear, the calm hand steadies. In a world that often mistakes anger for passion and noise for leadership, the calm soul reminds us of a deeper strength, a strength that does not dominate but liberates, that does not shout but heals. To train the mind to be calm in every storm is to make a choice, a daily choice. A choice to listen before you speak, to breathe before you act, and to understand before you judge. This is the path of those who seek not just to endure history, but to shape it, not just to live through time, but to change the times they live in. And so I say this, when the storm comes, and it will come, let it find you still. Let it find you unshaken, not because the storm is weak, but because you are anchored. Because you have learned that in stillness there is vision, in calmness there is power, and in the quiet strength of a trained mind there is the beginning of peace. There is a temptation in life to believe that the world must first be made right before we can be at peace, that governments must be reformed, that societies must be healed, that others must first behave honorably before we ourselves can walk with dignity. But this is an illusion, a comforting illusion, perhaps, but an illusion nonetheless. The truth is simpler and far more difficult. If we are to shape the world, we must first shape ourselves. If we wish to bring calm to the storm around us, we must first master the storm within. Mastering the self is not an act of pride. It is an act of humility. It means accepting that we are not born complete, not born wise, not born steady. It means acknowledging that within each of us there is both light and shadow, and that our task, our life's work, is to train our minds and discipline our hearts so that we do not become the very chaos we are trying to overcome. Too often, people confuse freedom with the absence of limits. They believe freedom is the ability to say what they want, to do what they want, to act on every impulse and desire. But what kind of freedom is that if we are still slaves to anger, to jealousy, to fear? Real freedom is not given by laws or taken by chains. It is won through the patient governance of the self. A person who has trained their mind to stay calm in adversity, who has learned to think before they act, who has chosen patience over pride. That person is free, even if the world seeks to confine them. There is a quiet nobility in the man or woman who has wrestled with their own nature and come out stronger, who has faced the bitterness within themselves and replaced it with discipline, who has resisted the urge to strike back, not because they are incapable, but because they have chosen a better path. That is where leadership begins, not on podiums or in palaces, but in the mirror. How can we expect to resolve the conflicts of a nation if we cannot resolve the conflict in our own soul? How can we unite people if we are divided within? The task of mastering the self is not a private ambition. It is a public necessity. Because when we fail to govern ourselves, we fall into the trap of blaming others, of seeking enemies, of justifying cruelty as justice. And so the cycle of pain continues. But when we learn to still our minds, when we learn to speak only after we have listened not only to others, but to the quiet truth within us, then we begin to lead, even if no one is following yet. Leadership is not about power over others. It is about power over oneself. It is the ability to respond rather than react. To act out of principle, not provocation. This is not easy work. It requires patience, honesty, and the courage to confront parts of ourselves we would rather ignore. It requires us to sit in silence when silence is uncomfortable, to question our motives when our pride demands defense, to forgive not because others deserve it, but because we deserve peace. These are the marks of a person who is truly strong. And let me say this clearly, self-mastery does not mean silence in the face of injustice. It does not mean retreating from the world. On the contrary, it gives us the clarity and the strength to engage with greater purpose. When our minds are calm, we see injustice for what it is, and we fight it with wisdom rather than rage, with resolve rather than revenge. That is how true change is made. I have seen men command armies and yet be prisoners of their own hatred. I have seen women carry nations on their shoulders with grace, because they had first carried the burden of their own suffering and transformed it into love. The world remembers the outcomes, but I have seen the inner battles that preceded them, the lonely nights, the hard reflections, the quiet choices that built character when no one was watching. So train your mind not just to endure suffering, but to understand it, not just to survive the storm, but to learn from it. Master your emotions, not to suppress them, but to give them meaning. Govern yourself with integrity, and you will never be governed by fear. The one who rules themselves can never truly be ruled by anyone else, because in the end, to master the self is to begin the great work of mastering the world. There is something profoundly powerful about a person who remains calm when the world around them is losing its balance. In such moments, when tempers flare and fear spreads like wildfire, calmness becomes more than a personal strength. It becomes a signal, a guide, a steady light that shows others how to walk through the darkness. It is easy to get swept up by the storm, to mirror the chaos of others, to respond to fire with fire. But when just one person chooses stillness, chooses patience, chooses understanding, they shift the energy of an entire room. And when enough people do this, they shift the direction of nations. A calm mind is not only a shield, it is a mirror. It reflects to others what is possible when discipline takes the place of impulsiveness, when purpose takes the place of pride. People may not always understand calmness at first. In a world addicted to noise and urgency, calmness can seem strange, even weak. But over time, people come to see it for what it truly is, strength under control. Not the strength that conquers others, but the strength that refuses to be conquered by circumstance. There is a reason that calm people are often looked to in times of crisis. When the future is uncertain, people do not follow those who panic. They follow those who can see clearly while others are blinded by emotion. They follow those whose voices do not tremble when stakes are high, whose decisions are not rushed by fear. A calm leader brings with them a certain kind of safety, not because they have all the answers, but because they are not ruled by confusion. They listen, they weigh, they act with intention, and let us be clear, calmness is not silence in the face of injustice. It is not sitting idle while wrongs are committed. No, a calm mind does not mean an inactive heart. In fact, it is often the calmest people who fight the hardest, for they are not distracted by ego or vengeance. They know what matters, and they stay focused on it. Where others burn themselves out with rage, the calm stay rooted, and they endure. And in the end, they outlast the fire. This quality, this ability to remain steady, does not come by chance. It is born from struggle, from suffering, from reflection. It comes from having faced storms before and learning that panic does not calm the winds, that shouting does not silence the thunder. It comes from training the mind over time to sit with discomfort and not be moved by it. And once you have found that stillness within, you cannot help but carry it with you. You bring it to your home, to your community, to your work, to every place where anxiety and conflict threaten to consume the moment. And people feel it. Even if they do not have the words to describe it, they recognize the energy of a calm soul. It settles the air. It brings rhythm back to the breath. It opens the door to conversation where there was only shouting before. In this way, calmness is not only a personal victory, it is a social gift. A calm mind gives permission for others to stop, to reflect, to breathe. And often that is all it takes to shift the course of a difficult situation. We are not called to calm only for ourselves. We are called to calm because the world needs examples of it, because there are children watching how we react to pressure, because there are friends and strangers alike searching for something steady to hold on to, because there are generations being shaped not only by what we say, but by the presence we bring into a room. Calmness is contagious in the best sense. Just as fear can spread like a plague, so too can steadiness inspire strength in others. When you train your mind to be calm in every storm, you become more than just a survivor. You become a teacher, not through lectures, but through example. You become the one who does not flinch, who does not run, who does not break, even when everything else seems to be unraveling. And that kind of presence cannot be ignored. It changes people. It reminds them of what is possible. And so the work we do within ourselves does not end with ourselves. It becomes a contribution, a legacy, a silent kind of leadership that does not seek attention but earns respect. When the mind is calm, the path becomes clear. And when the path is clear, others will follow not because they were told, but because they were moved. Because when one person remains calm in the storm, they light the way for many. Calmness is not a gift handed to the lucky, nor is it something that simply appears with age or position. It is not born from wealth, nor secured by titles. Calmness is a discipline. It is the quiet result of conscious effort, day after day. It is a choice we make, not once, but again and again until it becomes a part of who we are. People often speak of peace as though it were something external, something that must be found or given. But peace does not come to those who wait for it. It does not settle like morning dew on the heart of the restless. No, peace must be made. It must be practiced. It must be earned. And the training ground for peace is not the world outside. It is the heart, the mind, the inner self. To train your mind to be calm is to begin a patient journey. There are no shortcuts. There are no secrets. It is not a matter of repeating pleasant phrases or pretending that hardship does not exist. It is far more difficult than that. It means confronting your own mind, your own habits, your own pain, and choosing each day to respond to life not with reaction, but with reflection. In my experience, peace does not arrive in grand gestures. It is built in the quiet decisions, in the moment when anger rises and you choose to breathe instead of lash out. In the moment when fear creeps in and you do not run, but sit with it and ask what it has come to teach. In the moment when everything seems to be collapsing and still you do not collapse within. These are the building blocks of calmness. Small, ordinary moments transformed by awareness. But let us be honest. This kind of discipline is not easy. We live in a world that teaches us to hurry, to react, to shout over one another, to strike before we are struck. The world praises the quick, not the thoughtful, the loud, not the steady, and so we are taught to confuse noise with strength, speed with effectiveness, and reaction with justice. But what have we built with this speed, this noise, this fury? Often only more division, often only more pain. A calm mind does not mean a passive life. It does not mean surrender. It means presence. It means showing up fully with clarity, without letting emotions cloud your purpose. It means asking yourself not just what you want to do, but why. What will it build? What will it leave behind? What part of yourself will it awaken or silence? And yes, we must understand this. To practice calmness is to invite discomfort. You will be misunderstood. People will question your silence. They will mistake your restraint for weakness. But the one who is steady does not need the validation of the crowd. The one who is calm knows that storms pass, and that shouting into the wind does not move the clouds. It is in our stillness that we gather strength. It is in our discipline that we grow unshakable. I have known this struggle myself. I have sat with anger that felt justified. I have been tempted to respond to cruelty with cruelty. But what would I have become? What would I have passed on to others had I allowed my pain to lead the way? Peace must be practiced, not just because it is right, but because it is powerful, because it is the only way to create something new, rather than repeating what has already failed us. And practice means repetition. It means waking each day and choosing to be aware of your thoughts before your words, of your intentions before your actions. It means sitting in silence, even for just a few minutes, not to escape the world, but to understand how you move through it. It means making peace with yourself so that you do not carry your unrest into every room, every relationship, every decision. A mind trained in calmness is a light in dark places. It does not extinguish pain, but it keeps pain from becoming a weapon. It does not eliminate conflict, but it prevents conflict from becoming war. And the beauty of this discipline is that anyone can learn it. No matter your age, your past, your wound's calmness can be cultivated. Not overnight, not easily, but certainly. So we must begin where we are, with our breath, with our thoughts, with our choices. One moment of calm today makes us stronger for the storm tomorrow. And if enough of us choose to train ourselves this way, then we will not only calm our own lives, we will calm the world around us. Because peace is not something we wait for. It is something we practice until it becomes who we are.